Hello, and welcome to another episode of Autodidactica. I am one half of your host in space, Matt Paul,
And I am the other half of your host in front of the Northern Lights, Glenn Clark.
which are in fact a conspiracy by the government. Big Pharma has manufactured those northern lights, and
Oh,
yeah, they're all
so
just
all the way
an
back, like,
illusion.
let's see, when is the earliest sighting of the Northern? We're not doing conspiracy theories this
No,
week.
not this
That
week.
this month, that's a whole other topic that we
I
are
know
doing.
that we are doing at a later date,
Yeah,
but not this date. This date, we
right,
are doing the very fun and Thanksgiving table question, is God necessary?
right.
So we're going to be diving right into that. Uh, let's see. I came up with this thought very
Mm-hmm.
late at night, and the question itself stems from one of my trains of thought of is God necessary, as in, is it a step in evolution? Like
Oh, see, that's how I think of it too.
like when we first started, talking instead of grunting
Mm-hmm.
and communicating, and
Most of us.
most of us, some of
Yeah.
us still don't. Uh, uh, and then you can watch some of our other episodes when we talk about politicians and stuff like that.
Oh, that's
And
just what I was thinking. Yeah.
And so when we first started communicating and discovering our place in the food chain and in nature, and we look up and we look down and we look all around and we just start thinking
hmm
with thoughts capable of verbalization. Don't know if that's a word.
It
Thoughts
is.
capable of
It is.
verbalizing. Uh,
hmm
did we start? Is that when we started thinking about what's this and that and who made it all?
hmm
I didn't make that tree. I didn't make that jaguar. Uh,
Right. Where did it all come from? Where did I come from? Where did
and all of those
everything I see
questions.
come from?
And then here we are today in 2025. And we have
Right.
all of these worldwide organized religions,
Right. Right. All so
all of
many
them
of them
believing
different
in different things, some of them believing the same
creation
things in different
stories.
ways. Yep, creation stories and all sorts of things. And so, a lot of us modern folk are agnostic or atheist nowadays. I
Uh-huh.
think it's up to like 45%
Yeah,
of
it's I
the United
think
States.
atheism is growing definitely, kind of rapidly. It's kind of like atheism is growing, Christianity is shrinking, and Islam is growing. And I'm not sure, I don't remember which is growing faster between atheism and Islam.
I'm sure it's a
But
pretty
those are
close
the
race.
two, I think those, at least when I got this information a year or two ago, um, those are the two fastest growing things. So it would be, I'd need to research to see if that's actually still accurate.
Yeah, and
But
so with so many of us today, many of them, I have atheist friends. I have friends that mock believers
hmm
rapidly. I used to be one of them. I
hmm
try to avoid mocking in general unless it's fun. Um,
Right.
but and I mean that in a funny way as well. Uh, but when I get down to it, I grew up in a Christian background,
hmm
as you well know, and it led me to many different thought trains over the years and formed a large part of who I am. And
hmm
I don't regret those times at all. To regret that would be to regret who I am, and so I don't do that. But it makes me curious to think, humanity and all of its intelligence and whatnot, we've moved away from using religion to explain most things. And so when I think about is God necessary, I start to sort of extrapolate the idea that some of the first signs of higher intelligence and on the correct evolutionary path is forming some sort of spiritual
Hmm.
connection
Hmm.
with a perceived greater entity. And then,
Right.
maybe eventually your society grows and grows and science expands and you begin to
Right.
sort of outgrow those. So, uh,
But then, you have a large um percentage of the population resisting letting go of those stories they grew up with, those traditions. I guess it's kind of like you have like a family lore, like family stories that get passed down generation to generation. But then let's say you're descended from some particular person, but then you do 23andMe or whatever, and you find out you are actually the product of an affair, and you're not descended from the lofty ancestor that you've always thought you were descended from. And maybe you don't want people to know that. Maybe you don't want that to be true. Maybe you come up with any and every reason to convince yourself and others that you are still the descendant of that lofty ancestor. But, it's kind of like, we get attached to these generational tales that are passed down. And when you talk about religion, that's been passed down not just in families, but in cultures, and not just generations, but like thousands of years. So, yeah, so I mean it's never clean. There's never like a clean break from religion, even though there's so much of it, so much variety
right.
to
I mean,
religion.
yeah, and every religion houses you know, any number of individuals,
Right.
and each one of them is going to have a very unique relationship with that
Yes.
religion. And so, you know, us here in the United States are a very individual society. Um,
Hmm.
we don't really jump on the whole collectivism thing all that much, except for when it seems to come to religion to a large degree.
Right.
We do sort of uh, form a almost mob mentality when it comes to our chosen our chosen faith. And
Right.
most of us are brought into it at an early age. We don't get a choice. We just, our parents went to this church and now we go to that church. And then,
Right. Right. It's
sometimes you're given the choice, but it never really feels like a choice when you're given the choice.
right.
Like I went through confirmation and it was a cool experience and stuff, but at the end of confirmation, as you well know, having led my confirmation, uh, it's like, so this is all to decide whether or not you want to keep being a part of this church. And it's like, well, I kind of like it here. I mean, it's not
Right.
so bad. Like, are you trying to tell me to leave? I mean, yeah, some of those other places were pretty cool and stuff, but I know you guys. And so
Hmm.
for me, the choice was clear. I'm going to stick with my homies.
Right.
But, I can imagine in other faiths and denominations, a confirmation process is more like, now, if you want to leave, you can, but you will burn in hell forever. And we will
Right. Different
despise you as a
denomination.
person. And, I mean, and people are going to look at you differently no matter what. Like if I chose to walk away as a 13-year-old, and 13 years old isn't really old enough even then to confirm your faith. Like it's
Right.
it's
It's
it's not quite a life decision making age. Um,
right. But I mean, I don't know why I'm hesitant to use words like indoctrination, but
yeah,
I feel like the value of religion, like the great it has a number of values like we've discussed in an episode, is religion good or bad, and we found a whole lot of value to it in
right.
that episode. We surprised ourselves
Absolutely.
in that episode with how much value we found there. I think, though, one of the greatest values of religion is for children, and it's you grow up in a religion, and before the actual indoctrination into said religion begins, you're taught the stories. You're taught, I see I see religion as a language. The religion that you're raised in is your first language to discuss the great mystery. But different people discuss the same great mystery with different languages. You know,
Yeah,
different
absolutely.
religions, different names for things, different ideas about the exact nature of reality, like where did we come from, where are we going? Um, they all pretty much tackle those with ideas that become our language, you know, like different religions have like, you know, our primary language is Christianity, Methodist Christianity to be that's our Methodism is our dialect. It's like our accent.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, there's different religions have a devil figure and a different name for that devil figure, that antagonist, that spiritual antagonist. They have different names for the afterlife, for paradise, for hell, but they're similar topics, you know, different ideas about, you know, some may say God is dreaming, and when God wakes up, the universe will fade like a dream until he goes to sleep again and the universe is reborn. Um, some, you know, the Christian and Jewish and Muslim faiths all go to the Adam and Eve or the 6 days. Well, both. I mean, both of those stories, which contradict each other, are in the tradition, which to me, they're the truth in that reality, that fact that the first two chapters of Genesis contradict each other on the creation story, like in the order in which things were created and such. I mean, that tells us that the people who compiled the book of Genesis from various bits of folklore, a lot of it lifted from earlier religions, they deliberately put two contradictory creation myths side by side so that when you read that book, and keep in mind every book in the Bible was written separate and completely apart from the whole Bible. There was no concept of the Bible. So Genesis exists on its own.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
collection of letters and
right,
songs
right, all
and
kinds of different literature. But
spoken word.
right. So when Genesis was compiled, though, they deliberately made that choice to have contradictory stories. And to me, that says, do not take this literally. What we are telling you is that God created the universe. We don't know exactly how. We don't know exactly what the time scale was. But here are two ideas that illustrate the concept of God creating the universe. Here are two ways it may have gone down.
Yeah,
So, and I feel like that's valuable. It's like this is food for thought. And I think it's so cool, like because it is like you're talking about evolution and becoming self-aware and asking questions like who am I? Where did I come from? I feel like the book of Genesis and other ancient religions, creation myths, you know, science has proven them wrong on a number of things, you know. Like even the Bible, there's the first chapter 1 of Genesis. If you really look at it, it goes along very nicely with the theory of evolution. Like it talks about which animals came first, in what order, that they started in the sea, they crawled up on the land, they took to the air. Evolution, right? But it also describes a flat Earth. So,
right.
like, it
Yeah.
gives you the ancient description of Earth, where there's like a vault that keeps the water out, and you know, that's the atmosphere. But that's what they thought, that's how they thought it worked. That they're describing flat Earth. So the Bible was never a science book, but the stories are still really cool because it shows you the dawn of exploration of identity and self in humanity. Like these are the first people to start writing down their ideas about where we all came from. Whether it's true or not, those are so valuable as just
Yeah,
understanding the way the human mind works. Because you look at a toddler, one of the first questions a child inevitably asks is, where did I come from? And
right.
they've got
Yeah.
their own ideas.
Yeah, and they're like, and it's, most parents panic at that question. Uh, but it's when in this context, I almost got chills when you said that because that's like a literal like 4-year-old human that is
Right.
already questioning their own
Hmm.
existence. And it's kind of
Yeah.
mind-boggling to think that here's this little creature that, my spouse, my partner birthed, and I know
Hmm.
that. But then here's this little creature that can't even, dress itself, asking
Hmm.
where it came from.
Right. Where did I come from? Where am I going?
Yeah, it's
It's
astounding.
right. It's being self-aware, you know? It's like
And I
I
I wrote
am
down,
here.
you
How did
touched
I
on it,
get here?
was I wrote down that the like God and like the observance of God's creation and
Hmm.
just organized religion and more so on the God side of it rather than organized religion is the first step. Like it's the first instance of the scientific method almost,
Uh-huh.
like a major step
Yeah.
forward
Well,
for here is a conundrum. I have a hypothesis, and
hmm.
now let's test that hypothesis. And we've been doing that
Right.
for
The if
thousands of
then of
years. Yeah,
hmm.
and we have largely proven, or theories are largely against the idea of a singular creator, a
Hmm.
higher power, but there's
Um,
no definitiveness. There's no
right. Right.
because
And
it's undefinable,
right,
and
it's stuff
so
we don't know, but it might
it might.
it might even on our level of reality
Yeah,
soon become possible to answer that question definitively, at least for the universe as we know it. Just because speaking of hypotheses, there's simulation theory as they call it.
yeah,
And there's more and more very compelling evidence to like the order of the universe that defies entropy. It's like things that should remain in disorder don't. And like how the expansion of the universe should be slowing down, but it appears to be accelerating. Like it stuff like that, like there are so many laws of the universe that we're finding that parallel what it would look like if we were an elaborate video game. Just the mathematical nature of the universe. Like, if that is proven to be the case, that we are in fact living in a simulation, and I'm not talking about this in terms of a conspiracy theory, like we're in a simulation, take the red pill or the blue pill. It's like if that were the case, though, because I'm talking about it from a science perspective, that this is something that is gaining traction, then of course we were designed by a creator, but that does not make valid, all the various and contradictory religious stories. That doesn't mean the dogma of your religion is true because there's a game designer out there
yeah.
who
Ted,
created Ted out there created the universe as we know it, and it's a game, and some things don't solidify until they're observed. They haven't been rendered yet because no one's gone there. Like that kind of stuff is really compelling, but then you get to the question of, okay, so Ted created the universe. Where the hell did Ted come from? So it's like
right,
even if we're a video game, like we have video games, we know they came from us, but that means they're part of the larger cosmos, like a level of reality may exist in a simulation. It still exists in reality. But yeah, so like Ted also woke up one day and said, "Where did I come from?" And he eventually designs an elaborate VR game to study the formation of the universe and the path of evolution. You know, he's studying a hypothetical reality model and that we're in playing in the game, perhaps. You know, like it's great, but still, where did Ted come from? So even if simulation theory is true,
It still
we're
begs
now
the
asking,
question.
yes, we're now asking the question from the designer's perspective. Where did Ted come from?
Right. And so with
Does
the
Ted require God?
he probably does need God.
Ted,
If he made all this
he made
to
all this. He made, crocodiles eat baby bird. Ted needs Jesus.
yeah, he does. I'd like to revise his name to Tom, and then I can picture him as Tom from MySpace. And then, like that was it, like that was him, and he got what he needed, and then checked out.
Right, right. The clockmaker god, the
Yeah, he
deist perspective. Ted hit go and went home.
yeah, he went to some other existence.
Yeah, ate junk food, died from heart failure at 32. Very
Tom's
sad.
actually doing very well.
Oh, that
Tom from
Tom. Yeah,
MySpace. Yeah,
actual Tom.
yeah.
Yeah.
He left it all behind, and he's just like a photographer now, like a nature photographer.
Yeah, he can pretty much do whatever he wants after he
Yeah, he
sold
won.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, he won. And I respect that he just moved on.
moved on. Yeah.
More
Apparently MySpace is
more
still a thing, but
it's still a thing, but it's
like
not what it
in
was
some
at
yeah, no, it's
all.
not. Yeah. Yeah, so I was gonna extrapolate this whole thing of like begging the question along the lines we've been talking about it. Do you think it's possible for other like now we're talking about aliens, hence the theme back here. Uh
Aliens. Aliens.
aliens. Um, do you think it's possible for intelligent life to get to a spacefaring level without ever having had a religion crop up? Like, do you? I don't think like in. I mean, and obviously, I only have humanity's experience to compare this to, but
Right.
like judging from like how we became what we are today,
Uh-huh.
I can't see any avenue to get to where we are that didn't include, honoring the dead, the spirits of the dead, which led to where the spirits go, which led to what you're seeing in your background, the Northern Lights, as far as Native Americans and
Right.
whatnot go. They looked up there and saw that must be that's our ancestors up there,
Right.
and
And again,
eventually leading
oh.
to you see so much amazement and you attribute it to the creator, to God, to
Mm,
the all-knowing and to the heavens. Well, if the heavens exist, there must be some sort of king because all we know is, kings and, you know, uh, peasants, I guess, kings
right, right.
and commoners. And so if there is a heavenly realm, there must be a leader, and then it leads to us writing it, telling people, and eventually we get here. And so when I think
Mm,
about like all the sci-fi movies with all these intelligent life forms, not too many of them delve too much into alien society. They're usually the bad guys and the creatures, and
right. They're the unknown.
they're the
So,
unknown. They're here to harvest our resources and exterminate us and whatnot. And but I always wonder, like, obviously they can't believe in a god. Like, how do they have all this technology if their society was still feuding over who made us? Um,
right. Oh, they could
but
have just stopped feuding about it and just decided live and let live. It doesn't matter anyway, you know?
right,
Like they could have like I feel like yeah, they could still believe because scientists believe in God. Like we make progress steadily as a species while still having religious wars.
right. That's true. Very true. And so, yeah, I in my imagination, I can't imagine any intelligent life that didn't get its beginnings in folklore, essentially,
Right, right.
and wonder.
Well,
And I can't go
oh,
ahead.
go on. No, no, no. You finish.
No, I was
I
just
feel
going to
like I've talked too
reiterate.
much. Okay. Um, well, just because I think and again, I think, I don't know, I don't believe, but I think because
That's all we
again, we
are
only
here.
have all ourselves. We only have ourselves to study, and we can't study the beginning, but we can study children. And like we said, it's one of the first things a human child will ask is where did I come from? And if they don't get an answer, my sister, I think, told me once that before the question was answered for her for real, she thought that my dad created my mom and that my mom created me and that I created her. Like she was going in order of,
Interesting.
yeah, um, because she didn't have the answer, so she came up with a mythology all on her own. I feel like intelligent life, sentient, self-aware, intelligent life, that has to be one of the first questions that an intelligent life form will ask. And if they don't have the answers, they'll come up with some, you know? And I think that, that's kind of your original question. I think definitely all intelligent life in the universe will have a religious past.
At the very
They,
least.
at the very least, they will have started out first with mythology, then with religion. I feel like religion is a
It's
corruption of mythology.
that
Like,
that's the
oh,
title
well.
of a book right there. I'd buy that book.
Oh, cool. Maybe I should write it then.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll write it right now.
do some journalism. Yeah, no, I totally and you just sparked this thought in my head. I knew this was going to
Mhm.
be one of those podcasts where like we just sort of go in with a question and just start riffing and then all of it becomes unraveled. Um,
Right.
do you think that the development of a mythology, I like that we've broken it down to its core there
Hmm.
is sort of what this question is getting at. The do you think that the development of a mythology is a measurement for potential?
Hmm.
As in, we have other on this earth self-aware, sentient beings, the dolphins and
Yes.
the whales and gorillas, and I think some others as
Possibly an
well.
octopus. I mean,
Yeah. And so do you think that they're, and we can't understand them. We don't know what they're
right.
saying. They may have gods and mythologies already, and we just can't communicate.
Right.
But do you think that until we're able to perceive their mythologies, that their potential is sort of limited for now? Like maybe in a couple million years, they may develop further and further because, we weren't always this pinnacle of the earth in terms
Hmm.
of intelligence ourselves. We used to just,
Right.
you know, eat, screw, and shit. So, I
Right.
mean,
But
and then not think anything of it.
and this would be worth looking up because have whales been on Earth longer than humans?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I mean, it
modern whales, like
modern whales,
intelligent
yeah,
modern whales. Because I mean, you're looking stuff up, I can tell by your glowing face,
hmm
but because I mean, I'm thinking if they've been on Earth longer than us, they've been pondering the great mystery longer than us. And they've recently made some breakthroughs in translating whale song with AI. And I mean, I'm really like I had been fascinated to learn history according to whales because I assume they have oral traditions. that their songs are stories or their history and their communications, you know? But I feel like, because sometimes we found they sing songs and they'll have to stop, and when they come back, they pick it up right where it left off, which means that is a known song. That is something where everybody chimes in, learns the song, repeats the song, passes it down through the generations. I bet now that we're thinking about it, like I was fascinated to learn whale history, the history of ancient Earth according to them, of ancient humans if they may have interacted with them, in what we consider prehistory. Their history would go far beyond it. But now I'm equally fascinated to learn about whale mythology because I have no doubt, like, and that would be a test to prove the hypothesis. If all intelligent life must at some point develop a mythology in their quest to understand where they came from and where they're going and where they are in the universe, then whales, at the very least, have a religious or mythological history. And that would be proven when we finally crack that language and can communicate fluently with whales. I mean,
God, that would
that's
be
my
such an interesting conversation.
yeah.
It reminds me of like your talks about the never-ending story and stuff, like coming into
Oh yeah.
contact with such grand creatures that we can
Mm-hmm.
like the whales seem so chill, but they
Mm-hmm.
are like an ent,
Oh
like
right.
like an ent almost, where but
Uh-huh.
they're so old that they just like if they blink out of exist, like why don't you do anything about humans?
Right.
And they're just like, well, what will be will be. And you're just like, all right.
Right? That would be
And
interesting.
they're like, we have survived. By the way, it's millions of years.
Okay.
Uh the first ones, I mean, they started evolving about 50 million years ago.
Okay.
Um they
Modern.
lot Yeah, so modern whales trace back to about 50 million years ago. Whales
Okay,
as we
wow.
know them, like nasal shifted back, eyes on the side of the head,
Uh-huh.
common whale
Right.
traits.
Right.
That was about 40 million years ago.
Okay,
And then
wow.
the first baleen whales, as in like the filtering whales with the
Yeah,
long
yeah.
coastal teeth, that's about 35 million years ago. So whales have been around the block
A long time. So
a
their
long time.
history probably predates ours because its language and their song is such an essential part of their
Hmm.
society. And look at them, like humans, we're on land and we have all these diverse resources. We have thumbs. We can go in the water. We have to come back out. Whales are stuck in the ocean. They don't have opposable thumbs. So, regardless of their intellectual capacity, their physical reality has prevented them from developing advanced technology.
Right,
So, think about that though. Like, if human minds for millions of years didn't have all the distractions, like if we're trapped in the ocean and we can't develop photography or film or video games or television or radio or
weaponry.
yeah, or make statues and effigies to our gods and temples, and we can't do that. What are you imagine
We'd sing about
putting
it.
our minds to the great mystery and nothing more? Like imagine just and
The
recording that,
Zen.
like perfecting oral tradition, because in the old days, like it was a big deal to memorize every word of a story if you are a storyteller and get it perfect, because that's how it was preserved before writing. Um, like the Iliad wasn't written down for centuries, I think,
Right.
but it was an oral tradition. I could be very wrong about that, but I think that was the case.
Oh, I mean, there were plenty of them. Even if that's not, completely accurate, that's how
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
done.
there's a
It
lot.
was at the very least, it was written in the style as if it were an
Right,
oral
right.
story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I mean same with Genesis and the stories contained therein. A
yeah, and
lot
I
of
always
those are
just
oral
picture some
traditions
people
from
around
other
a
regions.
campfire talking about the creation
Yeah,
of the earth.
right.
And like that's
And
just
that's
the thought that
probably
crops
how it
into my mind.
happened.
And then somebody else went and told somebody else, and somebody else went and told somebody else, and then
Uh-huh. Right.
eventually
Well, it's
some king heard about it and was like, I can control people with this.
no, and
And
see, that's where religion corrupts mythology, because that's when it's like, oh, if you don't believe this with your whole heart, which shouldn't ever be part of mythology.
right.
Mythology is just here are some ideas. Where did the camel get its hump? Well, let me tell you,
Funny you brought
knowing
up the
full
the
well
Iliad
that I don't know. Yeah, it's like we have a fun story. Right.
because that's exactly what happened. You had people that were so faithful in the gods that they
Uh-huh.
let their city be taken.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And Hector tried warning his father that
Uh-huh.
hey, I don't care if a shepherd saw two eagles soaring in the sky as a blessing from Apollo. We have an army of all of Greece on our doorstep.
Right. Yeah,
Maybe
it's
we need to
time to go.
kill them all. And then they let the Trojan horse in, and that was that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Because they thought it was a gift to the gods.
Right, right. And the smart ones ran away. It's called the Aeneid.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, from an or is it Aeneas? Aeneas was someone who escaped the Trojan War. Yeah, he fled Troy basically when it was being annihilated.
Good man.
Yeah, good man. And so the stories persist, I guess. Um But yeah, like I'm just very interested in whales.
Yeah, I could tell. We're gonna be studying. We're gonna do an episode like a year from now. We're gonna be doing whale religion, fact or
Right,
fiction.
right. Whale religion. But yeah, like so my question then would be have they outgrown mythology? Like do you have to not need it as much because they're still in like raw nature? They're not technologically advanced because they don't have the physical ability. They have the mental ability, but not the physical ability to advance technologically. So has technology added distance between humans and their gods?
Oh,
And
good point.
or would mind alone do a better job of that? Like, does technology get in the way of our advancement, or does technology, by its nature, escalate our advancement in thought or away from primitive thinking?
Huh. And primitive has a negative connotation to it. Like
I
you
know,
say
and
that,
I said that and I heard that, and I'm like, I don't know of another way to word it.
but I
Like,
mean,
you're
you're
not
not
saying.
it's not an inaccurate statement.
Right. I mean, I could say base human thinking. Like the where did we come from, where are we going, and where are we and why?
Yeah,
Like
and I
that's the
mean, no, I
basic
think that's a very profound
questions of
thing.
sentience.
Is I think that technology is probably distancing us because I mean, think about it now. What do all the, people who can afford to do from
Hmm.
time to time when the world gets too much for them? They go out to some cabin in the woods and
Uh-huh.
just exist in nature to recharge and whatnot. And then we come back to our busy, hectic lives and record our little podcasts on our little computers and whatnot. And,
Right.
and we're always plugged in now with smartphones.
Hmm.
And, so I mean, here we are, the most technologically advanced we've ever been. And as I said at the beginning, we're the furthest from God as we've ever been. And more people
True.
seem, whether or not they claim to be agnostic or atheist, more people now than ever, it seems, just claim to be spiritual
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
be, religious.
Uh-huh. Which
Because, like you said, religion is the corruption of mythology.
mhm.
And, you know, uh, I guess a parallel to that would be spirituality. You know, it's a corruption of the spiritual self. And so yeah, I mean, in our quest for God, we have gone in the opposite direction, it would seem. God, we almost sound like a an evangelist late night thing right now
Right.
because here
Yeah,
we
but
are
we're
trying to prove, listen, you just need to get away from your smartphones and come back to God. Uh,
right. But to me, it's not a dogmatic thing. It's more the great mystery. Come back to the great mystery. Let's ponder what we're doing here because it's fascinating and it's good for our brains to struggle with questions we do not have readily available answers to try to guess the answer before we can get there. Which is where simulation theory comes from. It's where the Big Bang, the idea, and there's fine, the science gives us the answers so far.
oh
Like
yeah.
science doesn't have the answers. When they get it wrong, it was in the direction of right, usually,
No, yeah,
Like
we're
it's like
finding
we'll
stuff
have a
now.
theory that's proven out to be true, and but then we find out more, which means, oh, there's actually more to it than that. So we throw that theory out
Yeah, dark matter
because
is
the
messing
new
with everything right now.
hmm
Like the as we continue to study space and the emptiness,
uh-huh.
like we're getting further and further from Einstein's equations.
Right.
And like those are
And
becoming
that
harder and harder to prove
right, like
from
a lot
my
of them.
meager understanding of
Or
it.
some of his work, yeah. It's like that doesn't make Einstein a moron.
No,
It's
not
like
by a long shot.
we're standing on his shoulders to
Almost
figure
a
out.
hundred years later.
Yeah, yeah. It's like even to disprove him, we stand on his shoulders and we start with what he gives us. So
Yeah, we
I
need that
hate how
guy
like,
from Goodwill Hunting.
oh right.
He's
Oh
out in
well.
San Francisco somewhere.
Oh yeah, probably.
Great
If he
movie.
exists. He does. Everyone exists, even fictional people.
Yeah, simulation theory, man.
Well, I mean, if it exists in your mind, it exists because your mind exists. So, I mean, that's kind of how I think about things, but
You had when I asked you before we started here if
Mhm.
you had any questions on this, was there another angle you wanted to take to the statement, "Is God necessary?"
Well, no, I was going with an existential angle in my mind because that's the way that I ponder that question. But I guess there's other ways you could look at it. And I mean, I'm definitely not done talking about existential God, but is God necessary for the stability of society, whether God exists as such or not? Is the idea of God necessary for morality, for ethics?
That was one
Is
I was blanking on it. Was that, we take a negative approach to the sort of perversion of God for
right,
control of the
right,
masses.
right.
But during the population booms of, the what do they call that in the Mesopotamian era?
Hmm.
Uh, me, me, what was that called? I think that's right. I don't remember. But
Mesopotamia. Oh,
whenever
that's
we
where the
first stopped hunter gathering and first started planting
and started
and,
writing
and started
and
writing
yeah,
and we started taxing and we
right.
started, there was
We
a huge
invented the
population
receipt. It was
boom
made of stone.
and it was for goats
Right.
or sheep or one of
Or
those things.
corn or something. It was yeah.
Yeah, and so religion as a means, God as a means for control of a rapidly growing masses.
Hmm.
Can't really fault the leaders of the time for being like, hey, they don't respect our authority because
Right,
why would they?
but what if we were ordained by God?
Yeah, and I mean, it worked like a charm.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Which is why
people,
the Old Testament God is so scary.
and that explains it right there. Well, because people were still so impressionable,
Uh-huh.
people were still imaginable. Like, or is that, I don't know. Uh,
It's going in the
but the,
Autodidactica dictionary.
yeah. So, but I mean, they were able to, like, if somebody told me right now that I was going to go to hell for having tattoos, I'd be like, up yours, buddy. And,
Hmm.
but, if I was a, 10,000 BC farmer, and somebody was like, hey, did you know that there's a scary man up in the sky that will cast you down to hell if you, wear wool with silk? I'd be
Right.
like,
And he's like,
well, damn, I
"What?
better make sure I don't.
What's your proof?" Well, he created the universe. Well, how do you know? Well, we're here, aren't you? Yeah, but what? Do you have any better ideas where we came from? No. Okay.
No, I
Then
mean,
the God told this guy over here. He spoke to him through a burning bush that wasn't consumed. Wow. Like
yeah,
stuff like that. You
exactly.
wouldn't say that to me if it weren't true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I can just
you
I'm imagining
you've
like
got so much gold on it must be true.
right,
And
right.
yeah, my buddy went to hell last week. And and then he fell off the edge of the earth, aka
Mhm.
he set sail to explore and didn't come back, so he must have just
Right. Must
fallen
have
off the
fallen
edge of
off
the
the
earth.
edge. Again, flat Earth, it's only stupid now. But back when the people of the world did think the Earth was flat, which isn't a period that lasted as long as where Columbus did not prove that the Earth was round.
No, it was
It
a
was
long time ago.
known. Yeah,
Egyptian dude proved it,
right. And
and
probably people before history knew the Earth was
yeah.
round, but the flat Earth theory, it's just like any creation myth. It's like, well, we see the Earth to a point and then nothing. It's like if you sail out there, I've seen boats fall off the edge of the Earth. They're just
Yeah,
gone.
watch, there's one right now. And
Yeah,
then it just crosses the event horizon and
yeah.
can't see it
The
anymore.
the horizon. I don't
Yeah, not the
think
event
I think the
horizon.
event horizon
The
is
the
like that would be an
precipice.
interesting sight though. Our
Yeah,
our future ancestors, our future descendants may see that tragically.
yeah, that would be
See
cool.
people cross over into the event horizon of a black hole.
Yeah, no, I mean, but all those things were unexplainable, and as a 10,000 BC farmer, yeah, I'm gonna believe what the rich guy said. Because
Uh-huh.
why would
Uh-huh.
he lie?
Right. God has clearly shown him favor because of his belief. Like there's all kinds of ways. And plus,
I lived through
you
that
know,
battle. Well, that was because
mhm.
of God.
Yeah,
God
God was on
spared him.
our side.
God was on our side.
Clearly. Like,
And yeah, and I mean, and then I feel like, it started that way and then it just spiraled into actual bloodthirsty belief.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, because then it became like maybe it starts out as a means for keeping everyone like enforcing a moral and ethical legal code, you know? But then it goes into, well, then disbelief is a threat to the order of our society. So, you know, if people made up a religion, say, to control morality in a small community, it's like this
Nowadays we
is
call that a
good, this
cult.
is bad, right? But then eventually it became necessary. Like the people who knew they made it up die off, you know.
Yeah.
But then it's like anyone who questions the veracity of these weird stories, you know, like like a Copernicus or someone, it's like you are a threat to the order of the world. It's like, what do you mean? What do you mean the sun doesn't orbit the earth? It's like, what do you mean the earth is older than 6,000 years? Like, what do you mean animals evolved from other forms over millions of years in isolation, and that's why the Galapagos Islands has such weird animals? That's crazy talk. It's a danger. You should be in prison. You should be killed. We're going to burn you
Yeah.
at the stake. We're going to demonize you everywhere. Like, because we can't talk about these ideas outside of the religion because it'll piss off God. You can't ask questions. But
That's how religion started. That's how mythology started, was asking
right.
questions.
Asking questions and then religion corrupts it by ask no questions. But then the thinking person will realize that if something is true, then the if then thinking is very important in critical thinking in general. If something is true, then it can withstand any amount of scrutiny. So there is no rational reason to forbid questions. If something is untrue, then it cannot withstand any amount of scrutiny, and it makes sense to forbid asking questions. If you need people to continue to believe a lie, you have to forbid them to ask questions because scrutiny is the enemy. If you're telling the truth and you know it, you have nothing to fear from scrutiny, And I wonder if whales have gotten there without, like, have
Yeah,
they
I haven't stopped thinking about the
scrutinized
whale
this?
religion.
Neither have I, because is it mythology as in valued stories from our ancient ancestors who were trying to figure out where we came from? Have they reasoned out the cosmos? Like, I wonder. Like, I want to know about the whale philosophers. I want to know, like, we should get a whale on here. And
Yeah, yeah.
like,
Let's go ask some whales. Let's go down to where would we go for whales? I don't know.
I don't know, the ocean, I
Yeah,
guess.
I guess the ocean. I hear they have whales
I
there
hear they got them.
down in the Gulf of America.
Oh, below.
Had to throw that zinger in
Grumble,
there.
grumble, grumble. Um, I'm trying not to get political. Like, I have to do that with every conversation I have.
Yeah,
I generally only try for a few seconds, but I don't know. Like, God being necessary, though. Like, if you want to get political,
yeah. Let's go
I mean,
for it.
it's the
Yeah, it's
same
the same
thing.
thing. Yeah,
Like, did, why is it important for politicians to acknowledge that they believe in God? And all of them do it.
yeah. You
It's
have to.
you have to or you won't be elected.
Yeah,
Allegedly. I mean, I'd like to see someone try it in the modern world.
I'm sure there have
Um,
been cases, and you just don't hear about them
right.
because they didn't
But
win.
right, because everyone's afraid of an atheist. Why? Because,
Right.
well, honestly, because they don't believe the weird stories they've been told of their lives, which horrifies them, and they don't want scrutiny. They don't want any scrutiny, so everybody shut up. It's violating my faith that isn't as real as I think it is. Otherwise, I would invite scrutiny, but I'm not bitter. I know I don't speak for, there are exceptions to every generalization,
Oh yeah. Hence why it's a
but
generalization.
right, right. So I
Hence the
know that,
meaning of the word.
but I feel like that is the case with a lot of super religious people that fear scrutiny. Um, that their faith isn't as strong because they know if they hear questions, they'll turn them over in their heads and they don't want to because they know how silly a lot of it sounds. And that doesn't mean it's not valuable, um, or that it doesn't contain some truth, but um, yeah, but
Yeah, they don't want
politicians,
their world belief shattered.
right? And
A lot of them are like, I am way too old to be pondering
yeah,
these
yeah,
questions.
just let
You
me
know,
die with my faith.
yeah,
Um, and like,
and I'll make you miserable for not having it.
right. And I'm not saying there isn't a God. I'm saying religion and God need to get untangled from each other. Or religion and the idea of a creator or the idea of higher states of being, higher consciousness. Like, because a God can be defined in so many different ways. You know, like
Right,
the gods of ancient Greece are very human.
right.
Um,
And then there's
and
Shintoism in
mhm.
Japan,
Oh,
where there are
yeah, true.
thousands of gods today.
Right, right.
And
Yeah,
you
there's
know,
monotheistic
some people are
and
hardcore about that.
mhm.
You know, do not mock the gods or you
Right,
will find misfortune.
right,
And like you go to a temple over there and you start dicking around and you will be put in a cop car. Like,
right.
and you know, you cannot mock them. Like they already a video game came out recently, Assassin's Creed something or other. But
Uh-huh.
it's set in, you know, I think Edo era
Oh,
Japan.
yeah, yeah.
And Assassin's Creed is a game with lots of parkour elements. You
Hmm.
climb all over walls and stuff like that. You know, like you could climb on the Vatican in Assassin's Creed 2, set in Renaissance Italy.
Hmm.
And they had, I forget what they're called, and I should know, but you had the ability to climb up on the spirit gates that
Hmm.
lead up to shrines in this Assassin's Creed game. And they were like, you should probably take that out because it might
Oh,
be
yeah.
offensive, and they did. They
Uh-huh.
removed the ability to climb up on those things. Um, and I was like, that's pretty cool, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's also just a video game.
Right, true, but so is reality. I mean, what
Yeah, right.
oh, but you know, like I don't know if we really finished talking about like ethics. Isn't that where we were kind of going? But
Yeah,
then politicians, it's kind of the same. Like politicians, that's a clear example of using religion to control people because you can't tell me any of these right-wing Christian fundamentalist politicians and preachers actually believe the stuff they're shoveling into everybody's mouths. Because if they did, they would behave differently. You
right,
know, they have no ethics, which tells me they don't believe the teachings of Jesus. Like they act in a way that is 100% antithetical to the teachings of Christianity, but they use it as a tool for religion, you know, and they never apologize. They have no remorse. They lie, 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 all of which is forbidden by their alleged religion. But then, you know, so that brings us back to, is God necessary for ethics? And I mean, my short answer is no.
right, right. I mean, that is the short answer
Uh-huh.
because, you know, here we are today, and we have plenty of good people
Right.
that claim
Right.
atheism.
Mm-hmm.
And not just, you know, not just any form of atheism, but like militant atheism, where they're like, there is no God. And, you know, that's, you know, limiting beliefs and all that. But
Right.
they don't need a God to know not to murder or lie
Right.
or steal or rape
Right.
or kill. You know, I already said that murder, but uh, yeah, you know,
And you
it's
know,
not entirely necessary for a fully formed brain
and I
to
want to,
just not do horrible things to other people and
yeah, it's
creatures
called
and your
empathy,
environment. Yeah,
which we don't have society unless we develop empathy.
right.
So empathy is the norm in human development. It's like lack of empathy is abnormal human development. Um,
We call those sociopaths
right. And that doesn't mean a
or
sociopath is
Congress.
right. Um, but I don't think it's you know, like a sociopath isn't necessarily a bad person. It can be. So can
Right.
anybody can be a bad person. I think that's a connotation that's just, you know, they don't have a thing that most people have. But so they're able to manipulate and hurt people without their conscience getting in the way. But
Yeah, for them it's usually more of a it's only bad if I get caught
right. And so religion
because
is
I
a tool
understand
easily. Right.
punishment.
Right. You understand consequences, just not the actual ethics behind it. And so but most people have empathy and can develop ideas about, why is hurting this person bad? Why is throwing a rock at Sally bad? Because she's crying. When did I cry? When something hurt me. I didn't like it, and I don't like that I hurt Sally by throwing a rock at her. Throwing rocks at people is wrong. And God
Right.
didn't have to tell you that. Experience did, and I think the statistics bear out that generally atheists, as a group, are more ethical than people of religion. Generally, like because if you look, and I need to be checked on that because I didn't check statistics or anything. I didn't know what I was going to talk about.
Right. And there probably hasn't been too
Um,
many studies done on that either.
right, but there have been some. I know that because I heard that from a source I deemed worthy of filing away in a particular cabinet in my brain. There was a quote, and I can't remember it specifically, but like without religion, a good person will do good things, and a bad person will do bad things. With religion, that's the only way you can get a good person to do bad things.
Oh yeah, I know the quote you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly right because it's a form of it's a way to bend someone's moral compass.
Right, because you think I must be obedient to God. That is the ethical thing to do, according to this snake oil salesman up on the stage. In order to be obedient to God, I need to picket this military funeral,
Right,
and say, Sergeant Billy is in hell. So you think you're doing the good thing because you think that's what God wants you to do, and it might not sit well with you, but the Lord works in mysterious ways, right?
right. Yeah, I mean it's a a way to control someone's morality, their to suppress their moral compass and their
Yeah,
whatever empathy they have. It's a way to suppress it, bend it, and yeah, or just extinguish it altogether.
right.
Especially, certain families. I wouldn't say that it's often like from a controlled perspective. Like the worst religious people often come from no congregation. They come
Mm-hmm.
from like a very tight family background where they
Right.
have developed their own mythology based on
Mm-hmm.
generations of, distorted views on God and religion.
Mm-hmm.
And those are generally like I think of the movie Carrie or the novel Carrie. I've never read the novel, but she came from a
Yeah, I read the novel. I
horribly
didn't
religious
see the movie.
family,
Oh
and
yeah, you
it
dirty pillows.
yes, and it impacted her astoundingly. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
there's plenty of other stories in pop culture of hyper religious um, youth being introduced into, say, a modern setting, and
Right.
and then exploring how that might pan out.
Right.
And
Right.
I've known some extremely religious people that were probably the worst people I've ever met. And I
Mm-hmm.
also know some that are legitimate saints.
Right. Some of the best people you have ever met.
Yeah, like far better than I ever will be,
Mm-hmm.
like as a empathetic person. And I have a few examples in my head. Like this girl that I knew was her brother was like dying from cancer, like actively.
Mm-hmm.
And like you could tell that she was on shaky ground with her faith, but she still like has this massive social circle of people that like depend on her for like guidance, and like they look to her for like
Right.
advice, and she's always like, my inbox is always open. I'm always down to talk if you're going through anything. And like it's incredible to see how somebody's empathy can coexist with their faith.
Hmm.
And for them, the question is God necessary, is probably a pretty easy one
Hmm.
for folks like that who have experienced tragedy and only I mean I guess that's another angle on this whole thing is some people need Jesus, and I
Hmm.
mean that in a sense of like, and this is also touching upon something that I mentioned earlier, militant atheism. Like, I don't go around trying to diminish other people's faiths as long
Right,
as they're not
right,
being a dick.
right. As long
um
as they're not trying to use it to hurt people who
yes,
need to
and
be
so
defended.
I don't go around making fun of people that are praying or anything
Mm-mm.
like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, if somebody wants to pray for me, I'll let them,
Hmm.
because I don't think that, prayer is such a bad thing.
Hmm.
Um, but there are some people out there that are like, I wouldn't have made it through the passing of my son without God.
Right. And I would never want to take God away from those people.
Right. Yeah, no, and you probably couldn't if you tried. And
Right, right.
it's easy from a perspective of like atheism to be like, well, doesn't the bimbo know there is no God?
Hmm.
Like, and what a loser. Get a load of this girl, and
Hmm.
your son's worm food. And you
Right.
like take a step back and have some empathy for starters, and then if they say they need God, then they must need God. And I don't, and that's fine.
Hmm.
And so, I guess, is God necessary, like on an individual level, something that is only decided by yourself?
Right.
And
Right, but definitely not to form your moral compass.
no,
Y-
no, it should come
And
afterwards.
and God isn't even necessary. I mean, the actual existence of God isn't necessary for religion.
No, no, it's not.
Because like I've known so many preachers, just like what I was saying about the politicians. No way do you believe in God because of the way you act. If you believed anything you were saying from the pulpit, your behavior would be completely different. Therefore, you cannot believe in God. And
Yeah.
yet, you're still here. You're still a preacher. There's still this religion. You know,
Well,
a
it's like,
lot of Jewish rabbis will tell you they don't believe in God. And it doesn't change their calling, their value, and their religious culture. You know, for them, it's far more of a cultural thing.
yeah,
So it's interesting. Even the Jews in the time of Christ didn't take the stories in Genesis as literal truths.
it's just something we
Like,
do on Saturdays.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
like
something
they,
we do at birthdays. It's just something we do at
right.
weddings. Like, it's just
Mhm.
culture. It's, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and it's honestly
I mean, that doesn't mean all
worthy of
Jewish
further
people
study.
don't believe in
Right,
God. Like, it just
right.
means there are um, a lot of rabbis who will tell you they don't believe in God. That's not all rabbis, not at all. I'm just saying it's a, and there doesn't appear to be any great shame in saying that. They're not chased out with rocks or whatever, chased out with pitchforks. Whereas
Crucifixes.
if a Christian pastor who's a total hypocrite clearly doesn't actually believe it, says, you know what, I don't believe in God, but here's some good ideas from the Bible, they will be chased out of the church with pitchforks.
Yeah, no, I know it, man. And I mean, that's why I always said that my fallback in life was becoming a pastor.
Now, when you
Because,
do it, this video will
yeah,
surface.
yeah, right. And, because I mean, it's a pretty easy gig. Like, you just lie to a bunch of people. No, I'm just kidding. But not really. Um, you know, maybe a small time church, nothing too
Mhm.
big time. You're respected by all. You say
Yeah,
the things, collect a paycheck,
right. And it's
maybe
not bad
yeah,
to be a spiritual leader in a community, you
right,
know? Um,
because they're your flock now.
right.
You
Right.
can manipulate them however you want. If you want to burn the world down, you can. If you want to see it flourish, you can.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
do you want to plant or do you want to destroy?
Mm-hmm.
And
True, true.
too many choose the latter nowadays, it would seem. The
Mm-hmm.
end times people
Yeah. But okay, so
selling
what about
autographed Trump Bibles.
oh God. Oh, speaking of people who clearly do not believe any of it. Right. That that horse shit is
God is necessary
anyway.
for him
Well,
to win
to
elections.
manipulate people. That he doesn't, but God doesn't have to exist for him to lie about believing in God. What about not existence itself, but simply the theory of evolution? Like, do you think that God is necessary, a guiding hand, not any given dogmatic
I feel you.
iteration of God, but a guiding hand, a creator or something, someone stirring the pot is necessary for creatures to evolve in a certain direction.
Oh, okay, no, I am confused. Are you asking me if I do think that there has to be an intervention at some point?
Right, like are they random mutations or do they require
Is there
some kind
design?
of guidance? Is there design? Like whether or not the universe was created by God, because this could go for a monotheistic view of
Yeah,
God
yeah.
or a pantheistic view of deities. Like, you could believe there's an earth spirit or something that guides the development of life forms on the planet, and
That's a
that
good
could
one
be
because
a
I do
god.
believe in something like that, and I have long believed
Really
this. I
interesting.
I wholly think that the earth, I call it a spirit. That's the thing about God, and we've already said
Right.
this a couple times. Is like God can be anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have these you know little God objects. You can't see it because of my background, but our phones. We worship them like they're gods now. There's a
Hmm.
song that I love that says, these are our new gods.
Mm-hmm.
Small black screens welcome the new gods or something like that.
Huh.
But no, I have long believed, call it an earth spirit, call it Gaia, whatever you want, call it
Right.
God itself, um, that the earth is a single organism
Mm-hmm.
and that we are all bits and pieces of it. And
Right.
and this is my sort of supporting theory. The earth, in order to exist, the earth is quite young as far as planets go.
Right.
4.5 billion years old.
Right.
Um,
Just a baby.
the observable universe is speculated to be like 13.7.
Uh-huh.
And so, around the time when life first started appearing on the Earth, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not exactly sure when that was on the timeline of Earth, but
I have
that's
it
still
written down
relatively new
somewhere.
too.
Yeah.
That's like the last billion years, I think.
Uh-huh.
Um, and
Can actually look that
so
up pretty
it's
quick.
still a baby, and it started
Uh-huh.
cropping up life. And what does the Earth need? It needs cycles. The Earth exists in cycles. You've got all sorts of cycles. The water cycle, it has to have an atmosphere for the water to go up into and come back down from and cycle
Right.
around. And, it has to have just all of these intricate cycles. And one of the things that helps move those cycles along and helps the planet overall flourish is life. And there has to exist balance. And so, in all actuality,
Uh-huh.
the dinosaurs were the perfect life form. They did all the things that needed to happen for
Mm-hmm.
life to continue. They killed, they ate, and they
Yeah.
reproduced. They just reproduce, live, die, reproduce, live,
Right.
die. And
Right.
it was very balanced. You had predators and herbivores and
Mm-hmm.
flora for the herbivores, and throughout every catastrophe, they just bounced right. They evolved and bound. They were highly evolvable,
Mm-hmm.
evolvable. I don't know.
That works.
Autodidact dictionary. Uh,
Right.
they were highly evolvable, and they continued on. They
Uh-huh.
experienced natural disaster after natural disaster, the
Hmm.
changings of the earth over time, and just kept on going. And then, mammals showed up, and now here we are, and
Hmm.
etc. But my theory was that after the meteor struck the earth that
Right.
nearly destroyed the earth,
Hmm.
I feel like the earth was like, okay, dinosaurs, not going to work.
Hmm.
Dinosaurs cannot stop a meteor.
Hmm.
And so little
Oh,
seeds
you told me
began
this
being
before. Yeah.
planted.
Uh-huh.
Mammals started cropping. We need something that thinks. We need something that can create. I need something that,
Yeah.
and now,
Something that can
the earth,
stop a meteor.
something that can stop a meteor. And so the the guiding hand is evolution itself, almost, is kind of what I'm
Hmm.
getting at. Is, we, the earth, just over time has made us.
Hmm.
And I wholeheartedly believe that if we put down our guns and accept our differences, we would be an unstoppable force.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, there would be nothing stopping exploration, arts, humanities, and defense.
Right.
And
Right.
we could stop a meteor if we today just put
Easily.
down everything. And we
Hmm.
learned that a meteor was going to strike us in a year, and we just all collectively laid our arms down and accepted each other. I think we could solve it within 6 months.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. If
I
we
mean,
weren't
hell,
worried about petty stuff like the trans people under our beds or,
yeah, who's
you
gonna
know,
mine the
like
the
the
meteor?
atheists. Yeah. Who's going to get to be the first trillionaire? All
Yeah,
that
there's $30
stuff.
trillion worth of platinum on this meteor. Are you telling me that
Uh-huh.
we're just gonna blow it up?
Right.
Apple's gonna try to get a hold of it,
Hmm.
Elon, and
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, that's my going sort of thing. And whether it's the design itself is like adaptability, and whether or not it's a conscious thing, that's sort of
Hmm.
where it becomes murky. I don't know if the Earth said, dinosaurs not going to work, going to need humans.
Right.
It didn't
Right.
say that. It's more like we are one with
Yeah.
all of this around us. Everything outside of our
Hmm.
sphere is not us. And that's what's scary.
Right. So you're talking about our sphere being the planet Earth.
Being the planet Earth.
Okay.
And yeah, this is our little home, and we
Uh-huh.
are all a part of it, and that is my God, if you will.
I see.
And yeah, and so is that design necessary? Yeah, if we want to stop the meteor. I mean,
But um devil's
when was that
advocate,
meteor?
like
53 million years ago?
65 million years ago, I think.
65? Yeah.
About 65. And I looked up my notes. Earth or life started on Earth approximately 3.8 billion years ago. And we're
Gotcha.
about 4.5 billion years. So a little under a billion years after the planet formed.
And that was like the tiny little microscopic things that probably existed for
Yeah,
about a
yeah.
billion years before they started growing
Yeah,
legs and or
single cell
fins.
organisms, yeah, that we're aware of because it's possible there was something earlier that just there's no record, there's no trace.
Right. I mean, there's
Um,
hardly any trace of anything now.
right, right. Like we don't even know most of the dinosaurs that existed. We do not know what Earth looked like in the time of the dinosaurs. The
No,
only
it's
things
all
we know are the
speculation.
very few species. And we found a whole lot of them by our standards, but by the standards of what was actually on the planet at any given time, the conditions for fossilization, it's such a rare combination that almost nothing is preserved in the fossil record. The things we're finding are the fingernail clippings of what was on the Earth at
Right, and we
that
can't find
time.
shit when it comes to humanity because dinosaurs, when they died, they just laid there and then got eaten by things and then just sunk into the ground. Humanity, when we die and build graveyards, well, 1,000 years from now, they're gonna dig through those graveyards and not give a shit about none of the bones they find in there and just toss
Right.
them aside. And that's why we can't find it's almost harder to find like ancient prehistoric humans because we've just always built over our last society
Right,
without
we do.
really any qualms about it,
Hmm.
especially the earlier humans, because who gives a shit? Now we're all like, let's, you know, preserve and whatnot, whatever we
Right.
find. But back then they were
Oh,
like, poor saps, I need farmland, so I'm going to
right.
chuck your bones in the river and say, see you later.
Right. Or they didn't even know they were there because we were nomadic,
Right.
you know? And what do? You burn the body. Animals don't do that.
No.
But like they still, will they'll leave they would leave cave paintings
Yeah.
and things. Like that's a lot of what we know about humans isn't from our remains, like our biological remains, so much as our um
Technology
yeah, pretty much. We leave
or
a
tech and art.
technological footprint, like arrowheads and
Yeah. Pottery,
yeah, all kinds of
tools,
stuff like that. And yeah,
weapons,
weapons and art and
ornaments.
clothing. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm
It
fond of
is.
existing.
I am too.
Oh, what else did you have?
Oh, I didn't have anything else, but you were going to play devil's advocate to my God theory.
Oh, that's right.
I
That's
don't know if you
right.
remember what you
Yeah.
were about to go off on.
Okay. So you're saying you feel like there needs to have been a guiding hand. Like let's create or the earth spirit needs something that can fend off a meteor strike.
Yeah, cosmic events.
Right, right. But what if, like, could it have been random in the sense of the meteor wiped out the creatures that didn't have the adaptability to survive a shattered Earth, and the ones that did have that ability were obviously more innovative and intelligent than the ones that did not, smaller as well, because they would have had to be able to hide somewhere. They would
Right.
have had to need less food than a dinosaur, so a mouse of some sort would be
Yeah.
more likely to survive. Um, but yeah, but then because they were adaptable and intelligent enough to survive the meteor, then as they evolved to their changing environment, they became more adaptable. Those are the descendants that survived, were the more adaptable ones as the world is completely changing. And they became more intelligent and eventually they're humans and they just happen to be smart because we don't know if we're smart enough to stop a meteor from hitting the Earth. We might be too busy fighting over the transgender people under the beds and who gets all the money
Canceling the latest pop
and
star.
yeah, canceling the latest pop star and not even because like I keep seeing headlines about the Yellowstone volcano and no one seems to be talking about it. We're too worried about our
Dude, you need to
idiot
watch the
president
movie
is
Don't Look Up so
tweeting
bad.
on X. Yeah, I do. I need to watch that. Maybe I'll do that this weekend.
God,
Um,
because exactly what we're talking about now is that whole movie, and it's
uh-huh.
so. I told you, I scary laughed during that movie a lot.
Oh, I'm scared. I should watch it though. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, because we do not know if we're actually intelligent enough to face an existential threat rather than bury our heads in the sand. Like that creature may have yet to rise up in the chain of
the
evolution.
Messiah.
We may need to be wiped out. Maybe that Earth
Yeah, for
spirit
the
is like, you
whales to
know
take
what?
over.
This
Bad
isn't
idea.
working either.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
and that's what I was saying. Like on the side
but
of the Earth having conscious design
uh-huh,
choice and cultivating humanity, cultivating something that could
uh-huh.
stop. I would think that the Earth and all of its knowledge might be like, this is a gamble though, because if I give them the power to protect the Earth, I also give them the power to destroy it,
Right.
which is
Right.
largely what we have proved to do. But something a friend of ours said once to me has always stuck with me is, you know, don't think the earth is so fragile that humanity is capable of destroying it.
Mm.
And like the earth itself is
Right.
adaptable.
Right. I think
And
that's true. I
and so
think
like we talk about nuclear fallout and destroying the earth. I was like, yeah, but the earth
oh
will live on.
yeah, we could wipe
Like,
ourselves out easier than
yeah,
the planet.
and then, for about 50 million years or so, yeah, it'll be uninhabitable. But in about 2 billion years, it'll be back to normal and have dinosaurs again or something,
Right, and no one will even know that we were here.
or giant cockroaches,
Gah, that would be
which is the
bad.
more
I mean,
likely scenario.
I don't know if flies are more likely than cockroaches. I think the four most adaptable creatures on Earth right now are humans, dogs, rats, and flies.
Hmm.
We're the most likely species to evade extinction events. Like most humans would be wiped out, but as a species, we would probably survive because of how adaptable we are.
Yeah, we might hop on a rocket and fly off
Hmm.
to Titan or something.
Right. Yeah. Depending on where we're at developmentally when an extinction level event happens. But if Yellowstone supervolcano goes off tomorrow, the world is going to be screwed for a while because we're not ready. We're not ready to flee the planet. Like, where would we go? The International Space Station?
Yeah,
And
that's
just
coming
wait to
down later this
die?
year.
Like, yeah, yeah. It's like we don't have anywhere to go. But yeah, no, but I like your idea. I was just playing devil's advocate because, neither one of us can definitively prove,
Right.
at least not yet, like one way or another, is evolution purely random or is there a guiding hand? Um,
It's
I
like that
think
in Halo.
both are hypothetical possibilities.
Yeah, and that's like what was it in Frieren? You
Oh
know,
yeah.
they talk about the goddess a lot
Uh-huh.
in this fantasy uh story.
It's an
And
anime.
yeah, and they talk about there's one particular scene where they're praying for some people.
Hmm.
Uh their party consists of a dwarf, a human priest, a human hero, and an elf mage.
Hmm.
And they come to the dwarf's uh, fallen parents' graves,
Uh-huh.
and the priest gets down and starts praying for them. And then he's like, "What are you doing?" The dwarf says, "What are you doing? I don't believe in the goddess."
Hmm.
And he's like, well, you know, he basically says, I just think it's nice.
Yeah.
We very well may turn into nothingness when we die, but I just find it nice to think about that our life's trials are rewarded at the end rather than
Hmm.
just nothing, oblivion.
Yeah, and it is nice.
And that's how I feel too. Like
Uh-huh.
I find it really hard to believe in pearly gates and heaven and everything as it's
Hmm.
described in most people's descriptions. But boy, does it sound lovely. Like I
Hmm.
definitely hope there is a heaven and all of that, and that I
Right.
have led a life full of enough good deeds to get myself in there.
Hmm.
I don't live for fear of it. I don't live for fear of the alternative,
Yeah.
um, and I don't count on it.
Right.
Uh, but boy, does it sound lovely to
Yeah.
just have this life of struggle and suffering end
Hmm.
with endless reward.
Right. And and it's cathartic to think Donald Trump will go to hell.
Right,
I mean,
absolutely. And
or the person of, you find the most and to be
a
an
fair
antagonist.
selection of others as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Like someone might have a cathartic fantasy about you and I burning in hell.
Yeah, and power to you. I'll see you
Right.
there.
But I mean, hell is like it's a tool of manipulation, but it's also cathartic. It's a
Yeah.
cathartic fantasy, whether it
Oh,
exists or
I
not.
love telling people to go to hell.
And then picturing it, like,
Yeah, and then picturing it helps me sleep at night. And yeah, and I hope they start pondering, like actual like believers that get told to go to hell. Maybe they'll actually
Yeah,
start to think, why would somebody say that to me of all people? All I did was
right.
throw my hot coffee back at the barista when they got it wrong. And
Right.
I'm just like, maybe
Ha,
you're going to hell. And
perhaps if you were to die right now, the
yeah,
devil would be throwing hot coffee in your
if
face.
you were to die right now, God would be like, what the fuck?
Right.
How would you even think that that's what gets you in here? And
Right.
yeah, no, they would be
Blurry again.
boiling in their macchiatos forever.
Right. Um, but like I don't believe in hell. But yeah, there are some people who make me kind of wish I did. Um, and to me, I think it's because hold on, let me this is gonna be interesting. Let me try to fix this. The
Glenn just ascended.
blurriness. Can you still hear me?
I can still
It's
hear you. Yeah,
it's the rapture. I've been taken up. My
into the
camera like
northern
went
lights.
blurry and oh, I'm back and clearer than ever.
Yeah,
Okay.
you've been
That was
returned.
yes. But like I think, you know, if then critical thinking. If there is a God, then, if there is a God who created the universe, a God who is involved in the universe in an infinite capacity, then God cannot be petty. Hell is petty. Hell is something a monster would do, like it's an overreaction. It doesn't matter what your crime is. An eternity of being on fire is an overreaction. Like, what does that do? How does that make anything better? How can you apply lessons learned and better the cosmos in perhaps another incarnation? How is there any value to learning the error of your ways if too bad you didn't cross your T's, you didn't dot your I's, you're going to be on fire forever. Forever. Like you cannot fathom forever. Like
No,
we're not talking 300 billion trillion years. We are talking forever.
no, we were talking from the beginning to the end and
Yeah, like
beyond.
never will you stop suffering in agony. No. If there is a supreme being, that is not a behavior the supreme being would be capable of. Like just that sort of petty, tyrannical, small punishment for things when everybody is learning, no matter how horrible you are. Everybody here is learning, and a supreme being would know that. A supreme being knows everything that was going on in Hitler's mind every day of his life. A supreme being would be perhaps the only being capable of truly um, empathizing with Hitler. Not that they would condone Hitler's actions, but that they would know what drove him there. I'm using Hitler as just the modern day um,
Devil,
yes, like he's often used, and he is. Like if you look at
the
world
worst person
history,
to ever exist.
modern world, yeah, since like since World War II, the past century, Hitler is the worst human, right? So,
Hands
but I'm
down.
saying a supreme being wouldn't throw Hitler for eternity into hell because again, the supreme being lived every moment with Hitler, saw every moment through Hitler's eyes, just as they would have seen every moment through everyone else's eyes. They would have seen Hitler through everyone else's eyes. My feeling is a supreme being would be, enlightening. It's like
Yeah.
Hitler. Let me show you how you looked through everyone else's eyes. Let's
There
see
there are
what
some
you
people
learn.
that say because all of this is just us riffing for the most part,
Right. We're being
laying
philosophical.
bare.
We can prove nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah, laying
but
bare.
a lot of
I'm
people
an atheist.
believe that look around, this is hell. Like hell
Right.
is only reincarnating back into the environment in which you perpetuated misery.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe Hitler was reincarnated as a uh, Jewish immigrant
Mm-hmm.
in the wake of World War II, and
Right.
was
Right.
was made to suffer trials and tribulations of his
Uh-huh.
make. And there are people that believe that we this is currently hell. Like look around at
Yeah.
everything going on. We are in the proverbial hell that
Right.
we
Life is
preach about.
suffering
And
so
and then
much.
our so there is it's like there is no hell, but there is the mortal realm
Mm-hmm.
and hell on earth, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there is, but yeah, I like your idea of not believing in a literal hell of fire and
Mm-hmm.
brimstone. And,
Yeah. Like I think if
and I'm
anything,
pretty sure most of
hell.
those descriptors came way after.
Oh yeah.
Like, isn't hell in the Bible described as being like cold and empty?
I don't recall. Like that's something because again, translations change a lot of things very
Didn't and
deliberately.
then fiction
Um,
too. Dante's
yes,
Inferno, wasn't that
Dante's
where
Inferno is not
biblical?
biblical canon. It's not biblical. It was centuries after Christ. Like, yeah, no.
That's
Like,
where
and a lot of
that's where the
people
idea of the different circles
quote,
come from, or
right,
where it was
right,
illustrated rather.
right, right. And I love it's fun,
It's
but
fun.
it's
Great
utter
game.
fiction. It's not um it's just not from the same sources. Like, but that's where a lot of the modern ideas of hell come from, not the Bible, but Dante's Inferno. Yeah, so I don't think there's God like I think if anything, if we continue on after biological death as a consciousness, spirit, whatever, that we put ourselves in a sort of hell if we can't let go of things, if we can't learn and move on.
Yeah.
And also, if reincarnation is true, as some religions say that it is, then, and this is something that I got from a guy on YouTube called Dakota Went, Dakota of Earth. I love his travel videos, and also he's a psychonaut and has a lot of cool ideas. But like he said, if reincarnation is real, then this is the afterlife. And it makes me
Right.
think about like, so what if you lived a good life, then you're living another good life? But if you were an asshole, then everything sucks. Like you're being
Yeah.
punished in this life and taught lessons that you might have done better in the last life had you known them. Like it's an interesting, fun way of looking at things, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's plenty of reincarnation theories, and they're always fun.
Uh-huh.
One of the ones that I found a long time ago was the old soul, new soul
Mm-hmm.
reincarnation theory or idea, rather, not really so much a theory. But it's like if you are like zoned out in the world, like,
Mm-hmm.
children starving in Gaza and, genocide happening and uh, ethical cleansing happening in the United
Yeah.
States. And, if none of this really like affects you all that much, you might be an old soul. You've been
Ah,
around.
right.
You've
Right.
seen it.
Uh-huh.
You're desensitized to all of
Right.
the
You're like, yeah,
horrors
genocides come and go,
of the
tyrants come
world.
and go,
Yeah.
democracies come and go.
But then new souls are the ones who are just drowning in empathy.
Yeah.
They haven't been on this earth for very long, and
Uh-huh.
they're still new to all of this. And meanwhile, old souls over there like first time. And like,
Right.
I don't remember. That was a very fun article to read, but it was also very strange because it was talking about where the souls come from, like some distant place. I think they were talking about a
Oh.
planet.
Oh, was
Like
it Scientology? I
it
mean,
wasn't Scientology, but it sounded a lot like Scientology. Uh,
yeah.
except it was more talking about the old soul and new soul thing,
Yeah.
and it was a way to try to. I think the author of that was trying to rationalize why they feel so drained from the world,
Hmm.
and that they might be a new soul that just isn't used to the horrors that take place here.
Hmm.
And I say I'm probably a medium soul. Like I'm pretty good at turning off my global empathy when I need a break.
I'm
Um,
not.
but it does still affect me and get me down, especially, especially the more diverse your friend group is, the more you're likely to be subject to ideas um and traumas that you
Hmm.
wouldn't normally, you know, have.
Right.
Like, the more ethnically diverse and religiously diverse and whatnot, you know, it, that's the real shame of most of the MAGA movement is like if they just talked to somebody
Hmm.
outside of
Hmm.
their tight little
Right.
circles, if they just interacted with somebody instead of just being afraid,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
might
No.
realize that they're in the wrong.
And they would, and a lot of them have that experience.
Yeah.
Um, it's true. But right, yeah, so I mean that's way off topic. That's like so
Yeah,
many other topics. We
it
get
is.
all of them good.
I don't really have anything else.
Okay. Well, I mean my question, I mean, because I can answer mine. I don't know if you
Yeah,
want
keep
me to go
going.
first or you want to
Yeah.
go first, because and I know like this might be a sensitive question because of the world, like but what like okay, you said you think that about the earth
Hmm.
spirit. That
Yeah.
is that what you think about God, or what do you think about not just earth, but existence, the universe, everything? Is God necessary for reality to even exist as we know it? And I'm not talking about Tom. I'm talking about where Tom came from too. We're in that universe.
Oh, as in there has to be something.
Right,
Is that
like
what you're trying to get at?
well, does there have to be something is more what I'm getting at. Like, and if so, what do you think it is?
Um, to
And
be
if
to be
not, why
frank,
not?
I don't think about it too much
Hmm.
just because I've thought a lot about it, and the
Yeah.
more I think about it, the more I'm just like, I don't frickin' know. Like it's definitely fun.
That is a very fair and honest answer.
Yeah, like because yeah, no, I love the Tim thing we were talking about, or Tom or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
but
Tom. We revise his name, Ted to
He's
Tom.
Tommy Tim.
Yeah,
Tommy Tim, that's his full name.
Tommy Tim Ted. Uh,
Oh, Ted. He's got
yeah,
all kinds of names now.
yeah.
Right.
He does here too. Um, God, Jehovah,
Right,
whatever,
right. Same. We call him Tim.
Papa.
Well, we call him Tom. Let's have
Yeah,
a
we
war.
kill. Grrr. But uh, no, because if that's an age-old question already. That
Yeah.
atheists love to throw at Christians. Well, who made God?
Uh-huh.
Like it's so commonly thrown into Christians' face.
Yeah.
Is like,
Yeah.
well, who made God? And did God make
Right.
himself? And
Hmm.
that one, and I mean, it's just so perplexing that it's just, what are we doing? Trying to think about it. As far as like, is it necessary? Like my scientific mind says there's an answer for everything,
Hmm.
and my pop culture mind says it's definitely not a white bearded man in the sky.
Right. Right.
And so like that's sort of my best guess is it's definitely not Santa Claus in the sky,
Right.
and it's got to be something.
Hmm.
And so like, the Big Bang Theory, not the terrible TV show, but the actual scientific theory
Uh-huh.
is so flimsy that it's just sort of our best guess right now. It's like first there
Right.
was
Well,
nothingness. and then it
then
exploded into
boom,
everything.
and everything
And
was there.
and it's supposed to eventually rubber band back into nothingness.
Possibly. Like I think they're
And
still trying to figure out, is it
yeah,
going to
they're trying to
keep
figure it out.
expanding or is it going to come back? It's a
Universal
work in
collapse.
progress. Science is a work in progress.
And we are babies.
Right. And we'll
And
stand on the shoulders of the Big Bang Theory to figure out perhaps where the Big Bang came from if
until
that's
we
what
prove it
happened.
wrong, until we
Right.
come up with something like that's, I mean, that's what a theory
Because
is.
and we know our knowledge is limited, but
Right.
yeah. Oh, but go
And
on.
no, I mean, that was pretty much it. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Mhm.
Is God necessary for all of this to happen, to reality for
Yeah,
reality to exist? Can I get that sentence out?
you
Um,
just did.
I
Good
did.
job. I'm proud of
Yeah, it
you.
was a bumpy road, but we got there. Um, then I would say no. I would think it would be an impossible infinite number of things
Uh-huh.
that it could be. And you could call that God. So I mean,
Right, right.
because that's
Good
how
point.
God is often referred to, is the infinite.
That's how I
Like,
think of God. That's
yeah, I still remember
definitely.
your crazy theory with the chalkboard and the stuff, and it was cool. And talking about
Oh,
infinite
really?
and
Right.
finite, and I think it was
Yeah. And I
12 or 13.
right.
And I
I
was
think
like,
I've
pretty
honed
cool,
that.
Glenn.
Yeah.
I was like, Glenn, you need
Um
to you need to hide this. You know we're in a church right now.
I
You're about to.
encourage thinking.
Yeah, I was like, well,
But-
well, don't let them see.
right,
Don't let them catch you having us think.
right.
Can't have the youth be
Uh,
thinking. Then the
Right.
tides
That's
stop
all about
flowing.
it. Right. It's a threat because it can't withstand scrutiny.
Yeah, thought kills
Um,
belief.
right. And it should. Like I think belief is dangerous. Like the Kevin Smith film Dogma. That was one of my favorite points in there. Was that how was it? I don't know how it was worded, but just like the Chris Rock character was talking about how I think he said ideas are better than belief because belief is more dangerous. But, the way I look at it is belief is the line in the sand that we draw beyond which we refuse to think. And that's not valuable to me.
No, it's detrimental
Um, yeah, it
to
stops us
progress.
from, yeah. Like if you really want to seek God, you should be willing to discard the ideas that don't hold water. You should be
Right.
applying scrutiny to every religious tenet and dogma. You should be applying scrutiny to everything.
And then opening your
Um,
eyes to the actualities of
yeah.
not averting your eyes from, the fact that people are what
Uh-huh.
corrupt it all.
Right,
You
right.
know,
And like if you
don't
are
target,
going right, if you are going to find the answer to is there a God? Where did we come from? Who is God and what does God want?
ain't gonna find it in
Why
a
are we
church.
here? Well, you're not going to find it by going exactly. You're not going to find it in a church
You're not gonna find it
because
in a
you're not going to
book.
find it anywhere that limits your questioning and actually, if you don't ask questions, you won't get the answers.
Right.
Like you'll get stuck at the answers they had thousands of years ago that we've progressed from so far. Like we've stood on the shoulders of mythology. We wouldn't have science if we hadn't asked the question, where do we come from, and come up with gods. We wouldn't have, if we hadn't applied scrutiny to that, we wouldn't be having this conversation on the internet. It wouldn't exist. So I don't know. Uh have I done my two rocks floating in space thing on this podcast?
No, you haven't.
Okay.
I'm somewhat familiar with the two rocks floating in
Okay.
space thing.
Because like I
I've
mean,
not done it here because it's been a while since I've heard it.
Okay, because I think I should probably, because that's like what I think about is God necessary? That's the question, right?
Go off.
I mean, because like, and this is philosophical, this is not scientific.
No, none of this is.
Maybe someday a scientist will stand on my shoulders and
Yeah,
pull science out of this and say, okay, if then, and be able to actually find something through the scientific method. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm just thoughts. So, like, my thinking, first of all, it comes down to this. Like, if a dogmatically religious person says God is necessary for the universe to exist, right? Then someone who is not dogmatically thinking could come back and say, yes, but then where did God come from? And they would say, well, God always has been and ever shall be. It says so in the Bible. God didn't come from anywhere, God just is. Well, then you could say, then no, God isn't necessary for the universe as we know it to exist. Because if God could simply exist without a beginning or an end, then so could anything. So could the
right.
universe, because there was no will that brought God into existence, if that's the case, right? So that's a simple no, God isn't necessary for the universe to exist because nothing is necessary for God to exist. Yet we do exist. And so, in a way, and this gets kind of weird, like we exist because we must exist, and we must exist because we do exist. And that's where I get to the two rocks floating in space. Like, why must we exist? Like, okay, so it's if you have two rocks floating in space and there is nothing else in the universe, no stars, no life forms, just two rocks and blackness. The two rocks, they can't see each other, so they are invisible. The two rocks can't hear each other, so they're inaudible. The two rocks can't feel each other, so they're intangible. They can't, any given sense, they can't taste each other. They're flavorless.
Interesting.
They're invisible, they're inaudible, they're intangible. Do they exist? If there's nothing there to perceive them, like my philosophical argument would be no, they don't exist. If nothing is there to perceive them, existence requires an observer, which in a lot of ways, quantum physics is bearing out. Like a lot of things don't snap fully into place until they are observed. So, like, it's a big thought, it's a big think. I'm trying to keep my,
Yeah, I don't know if you were mentally prepared to give out your two
right.
rocks in space theory.
I've done it before elsewhere, but but it goes somewhere because um but see the thing is we do exist. We do see each other, we do hear each other, we're tangible. We can taste each other.
If we so
Probably
choose,
yeah, if we so chose to taste each other.
with consent, of course.
Right, with consent. Um, but the thing is like in order for the physical, like the universe in my mind, the physical universe must be finite, right? Because everything in the universe is finite. In the physical universe, everything has a beginning, everything has an end. So must the universe, because infinity, like if you can't fathom infinity. Like infinity is actual, it's boundless. It has no boundary. That means if you, Matthew Paul, were infinite, you would be indistinguishable from anything. Like you would be me. You would
Right.
be you would be everything around you because you would be in it. But in order for the finite to exist, my thinking is that ultimately, where did he come from? Where did Tom
Tom
come from? Where did
from
God come
MySpace.
from? Where did the two rocks come from? You know, the finite reality that we know must have come from the an infinite reality because it has to be just like they say about God, I always have been and ever shall be. Ultimately, the thing that begins and ends has to have come from a thing, no matter how many layers of reality there are. Ultimately, finite reality has to have come from something infinite, or there
Right.
couldn't be finite. So something infinite must exist because the finite does exist. And the finite came from somewhere, right? Even if we're a simulation, the world that created us came from somewhere. They're in a comic book. The world that created that comic book came from somewhere, layer up, 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 up. However, unfathomable layers, it ultimately has to have come from an infinite reality. And so, if infinity exists, which it must, because finite reality exists, then, if and then, right? If there is an infinite reality, then that infinite reality, we're not talking about it's just so big we can't fathom how big it is. We're talking infinite, which means it simultaneously exists in all points in time and space. It is simultaneously every subatomic particle that makes up Matthew Paul and every subatomic particle that makes up Glenn Clark. The infinite is the desk right here. The infinite is the internet. The infinite is all of time and space simultaneously. And if I am conscious and the infinite is part of me, then the infinite itself is conscious, which means if you have two rocks floating in space, there's part of they came from an infinite source that's part of those rocks. And if, the infinite, in order to exist, it needs to observe, right? It needs to be observed if it is to exist. And so that's why there must be consciousness. But consciousness needs context, And so, in order for us to comprehend the two rocks floating in space, we need eyes. We need we need to be able to put it in context. We need time and space and physical reality, right? And so my thinking is that whatever you call it, and I like to think of God as infinity, as the omnipresent consciousness. Because if we're conscious now, if we have consciousness now, and infinity transcends, it exists everywhere in the finite universe and beyond it, then infinity is conscious at every instant of time and space. So if there were a time when there were only two rocks floating in space, the infinite still had consciousness that it's there existentially, but experientially there's time. And it goes in order and in sequence. Like 8.3 billion years ago, life emerged on Earth. But that's an illusion of chronological experience. That's experiential life. But if the infinite existed before, it already had consciousness, it already had awareness, you know, because it's every time and place simultaneously. So it's always able to observe. It means it's conscious. So you might call that God. But it's like there comes a point where, like, if all of us are one thing, if we are all one with the infinite, then at higher levels, there's a being that is both of us and remembers being both of us at the same time. Like an author writing a novel, and two characters are both fractals of that author, right? But the
Right.
author himself is a fractal of a higher consciousness. And I think when you get to the top, like right before you look up, kind of, symbolic way of illustrating it. It's like there's a moment, an instant where the ultimate consciousness can comprehend all of time and space all at once. And like the next layer of reality is that you have no agency. You simply are all of time and space, and not just one timeline. I'm talking infinite variations of reality all at once. So this highest consciousness cannot ask questions. It can't learn. It can't change its mind because that's the moment when you're everything. And at the point you're everything is also when you start to comprehend. Like the end and the beginning are interchangeable. There
So
is no
almost
end, there is no beginning. So like I think
it's almost not even a matter of necessity.
right.
It's just a matter of being.
Right, but we must. Like, and if that's God, then God must exist because we do exist. And we do exist because we must exist. Otherwise, infinity has no context and can't observe itself and can't exist. But we do exist. See what I'm saying? Does it
Yeah,
make
no,
sense?
I'm thinking of
Like,
a number line,
uh-huh.
and we've got the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Mm-hmm.
and those exist because 0 exists, -1 exists, -2 exists.
Mm-hmm.
They all exist on an infinite timeline, an infinite
Right.
number line. And
Right.
0 through 5, 1 through 5 can't exist without the infinite timeline, and the infinite timeline can't exist without the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right, right. So it's all the beginning is
They
the
they
end. The creator is the creation. It's all there. It just everything.
is necessary.
And it always has been. Like everything exists. We're experiencing it chronologically, but existentially, it's all right there.
And see, I've always disliked this theory because yeah,
Uh-huh. A
I've
lot of
heard
people do.
because I don't like the idea of my agency being stolen
Right.
or rather returned.
Hmm.
And I like Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
I just got somebody from Cuba to read that book.
There you go. I spread the word every chance I get.
Heck yeah,
I was
I
like,
love that
you want to
book.
read my Bible?
Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Jonathan Livingston
Heck
Seagull is
yeah.
my Bible. And
Good
because
book.
yeah, good book. I need to buy my own copy of that book. I've seen it. I've seen the exact one you have at Barnes
Yeah,
and
and
Noble.
that's the one with the extra chapter
Yeah,
that,
the necessary
man.
talk about necessity.
Yeah, just to imagine that that book was a classic for decades before that last chapter was added. I can't, mm-mm. That last chapter
Is that author still
is,
kicking?
yeah. Yep,
Word.
yep. I love Richard Bach. He's a great author.
Yeah, his ancestor was a good composer too.
Right? I think he is descended from, or at least related to
I don't
that
remember Bach's
Bach,
first name.
Johann,
Uh,
Johann Sebastian Bach.
yeah, there you go.
But yeah, I mean, that's my tell me all your thoughts on God.
Yeah,
That's
it really was, wasn't it?
that'd be funny you asked a little
It,
girl, tell me all your thoughts on God, and that's
and
what
she
she
just
says.
spills that out.
Just imagine you have two rocks floating in space.
So talking about infinity.
Right?
And you're like, Jesus, all I said was good morning.
Right.
And then she just snaps back to reality and puts her lollipop back in her mouth and walks off.
Yes.
Like
I would love to
she just
see
spoke
that.
from the like from the word of the universe
Hmm.
and then snap back to reality. I mean, there are kids that do shit like that. Like
Yeah.
most of them are probably staged, like on TV shows and
Uh-huh.
like talk shows. And they're like, here we have this kid who remembers all 9 of his past lives, and he can tell us stuff about stuff. And yeah,
Right. Yeah, like one of my cousins when she was really little, like we were talking out on the porch and she started telling us, I mean really little. And she just started ranting about before she was born and she was pissed off. And it fits her character as an adult. Like this
She she
this
was she
backstory.
experienced the Dust Bowl or something.
No, she like no, she was talking about the ethereal plane. She was
Oh,
talking about there were angels and they were like, "Hey, where come on, hurry up. You have to go." Like they were trying to rush her and like she wasn't
just like 5 more
cooperating.
minutes.
No, she was like, "I don't want to go." And they're like, "You have to go. Your mommy and daddy are waiting for you."
Are you
And
sure she
she's
just didn't
like,
read the Silmarillion?
I'm pretty sure she was like 3, but but
Apparently,
no, I mean it's
that's
funny to
how
me.
Gandalf got there. He
Oh,
didn't want to
right.
go.
He didn't? I haven't read the Silmarillion.
Yeah, no, he did.
But
He didn't want to go to. No, this was when he died as Gandalf the Gray, and got sent back as
oh,
Gandalf the White. He
interesting.
the Valar sent him back, and he was so
Yeah.
tired of
Yeah.
dealing with Sauron and the other servants of Morgoth
Yeah.
that he was like, no, I don't want to go back, and that's why he was.
He's like, no, I'm gonna stay here and train with Goku.
Yeah,
We'll just stay dead for a while, okay?
and he did. He forgot his name. You
Wow.
know, Gandalf. That's what they used to call me. That's my
That's
name.
cool. Now I want to read the Silmarillion.
Yeah, dude, you should watch Rings of Power.
Really?
Yeah, people hated it because it apparently leaves some stuff out, and I'm just like, dude, the Silmarillion
Well,
is
it
like it's an encyclopedia. It's not a storybook.
yeah.
It
And
and
plus
they what they did was they wrote a narrative into an otherwise narrativeless
right. Right, it's more like
thing.
notes. Like
Yeah,
in like the appendices
it's
in
his world
Return of the
building.
King, it's almost another whole book just of notes
Yeah,
on what happened to people later. It's not narrative.
right.
It is like you said, it's encyclopedia kind of stuff.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's they made a compelling story out of what are basically notes. And
Right.
I watched I binged the first season somewhat recently
Hmm.
because I was having so much fun with it. Because I'm just like,
Cool.
just sit down and enjoy the story. But anyway, is
Right.
God
I haven't even seen
necessary?
the last Hobbit movie. Oh, but go on. Yeah. Is God necessary? Depends on how you look at it.
Nah, it depends on how you look at it. Yeah, I think it, you know, it's an individual thing that I thought up one night, and that's how most of
Hmm.
these topics, at least my topics, come to be.
Yeah.
Is me just
Yeah.
late night thinking and be like, I wonder what
Same.
Glenn thinks about this. And I wonder if anybody cares to hear what we think about this.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and that's what we discuss in our brainstorming, annual
Yeah.
brainstorming seasons. Like, okay, good idea, but
Do people
what can
care?
we do with it? Like, is
Yeah.
it worth doing a topic?
And we can usually riff off of anything,
Yeah.
and we did good with this one, I would say.
Yeah, I
Because
enjoyed it. It's a good
I'm always worried on these like sort of on the nose question topics.
uh-huh.
Like, man, we're only
Yeah.
going to be able to go for 15 minutes, and then it's like 3 hours later.
Yeah. Yeah. We can talk. I think our backdrops helped with this topic too.
Yeah, no, I'm having a backdrop every time from now on,
Heck yeah.
unless it causes
Same.
problems in the video editing portion
Right,
of
we'll
this,
see.
which
I
I
doubt it, but we'll find out.
then we'll have to
Hopefully it all
re-record this.
translates. Nah, we'll just have crappy backgrounds. Maybe I'll be
Yeah,
able to fix it and put a different background in editing, but yeah, we're rambling about tech stuff now. So,
yeah. So I mean, that was
yeah.
is God necessary? Leave down in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. I don't know
Uh-huh.
if other podcast formats offer commentary,
Some
or send
some
us an
do.
email. Uh, I think it's autodidacticapodcast@gmail.com.
Yes,
And
that's our
yeah,
email.
let us know if you think God is necessary in any of the contexts we've described or your own.
Right, yeah. I'm very interested to hear ideas because that's all it is. It's philosophy. It's we're sharing ideas.
Yeah. I mean, this is
So,
what Plato and Socrates used to do.
so great. Heck yeah. What next episode is going to be Is True Cinema a Dying Art?
That's going to be fun. We're just going to sit around and talk about movies.
Heck yeah.
a lighter topic from
A
Is
lighter
God
topic.
Necessary?
Is God necessary? Now let's talk about movies.
Now
That's
let's talk about God's
let's do
creation,
some
cinema,
escapism. Yeah,
an
yeah.
escape from God's creation,
Or an
which is his
examination of
creation.
it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I almost watched The Passion of the Christ recently.
Really?
Yeah, I think I
That's
watched it before and I had a blast with it.
that's an intense movie.
Yeah, it is. But anyway, good podcast.
I agree. All
Got
right.
any plugs you want to do?
No, just same old stuff. You want to check out my writing, my novels, my short stories, you can go to my author website, glensladeclarkjr.com. I've also got my own author YouTube channel where I have a vlog and other quirky things. So if you want to check me out, you want to stalk me,
Go stalk him.
yeah, stalk me at glensladeclarkjr.com and everywhere you can bounce to from there.
Yeah.
What about you? You want to,
I don't do anything nowadays besides work and play Monster Hunter mostly.
heck yeah.
And then this and trying to learn how to be a proper homesteader
Right,
and
right,
and just knowing my dad's looking down on me and looking at that lawn that I've got right now. And
right.
I'm out there mowing. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going. But yeah, no. Oh well, and until next time, this has been Autodidactica. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. Talk to you next time.